Angel is brought to you by LinkedIn. You already know LinkedIn as the world's largest professional network. It's also a better way to find great talent. Go to linkedin.com/angel to get a $50 credit towards your first job post. Terms and conditions apply. And Salesforce Essentials. Jumpstart sales and support by leveraging the world's #1 CRM at a startup price point of just $25 a month per user. Go to salesforce.com/angel for an additional 50% off and a free onboarding call.
Hey everybody, welcome to Season 3 of Angel, the podcast I started to complement the book I wrote. The book is called Angel, the podcast is called Angel. You can go buy the book, angelthebook.com. It's also in Japanese and Chinese, soon coming to 7 other languages. I don't know which ones. They sell them. Thank you, Brockman Inc., for selling my book around the world. I appreciate it, and I'm hard at work on the next book. This podcast is to give you an idea of how other people think about investing. There is no one thesis or theory or overriding magic bullet of how to invest in private companies, nor public ones, to be honest. What there are a lot of people who've become successful at it and different theories, different takes on it, different strategies, and they are all contextual. So while there are heuristics, the game changes based upon the environment we're in. The environment we're in 2019 at the taping of this is radically different than when I started in 2008. In 2008, we had a hard time finding 6 companies to come to Open Angel Forum, which was just like a little get-together of 15 angel investors and 6 founders. One of those founders that came was Travis from Hoover. Another was Marco from Thumbtack, Melody from StyleSeat. Back then, if you met a startup, they were likely legit, hardworking, and determined. The chances of them failing were still great, but much less than today when we have a lot of noise. Probably 100 times as many founders today are creating companies, perhaps 200. What that means is the name of the game in 2019 is to sort properly, and the name of the game in 2008 was to place bets actively. Who knows what the name of the game will be in 2029, but we'll figure that out here on Angel, the podcast, and you can visit angelpodcast.com. I'm really excited to have our next guest because he's a longtime friend of my other podcast, This Week in Startups, and an extremely talented founder. His name is Ryan Hoover. You know him because he was the founder of Product Hunt, which he started back in 2013-ish.
Not quite that. Yeah, it was end of 2013.
End of 20, so 2014.
Yeah, incorporated 2014.
Got it. Yeah, incorporated 2014, sold to AngelList, and now you are the founder of Weekend.Fund, the Weekend Fund, which is a $3 million fund. I think you've made 37 investments. Typical check size is $50K, $100K, something in that
exactly.
range.
I did the median is $75K, so right in the middle there.
Perfect.
Yeah, good guess.
And you have, I'm sure, a thesis about investing given the fact that you created Product Hunt, which ranks the top product launches of the day, almost like a Reddit or a Dig for newly released products. What is your thesis about angel investing? And welcome back to the program.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm glad you're doing this, by the way. It's,
Thanks for shaving.
Yeah, I did shave for you, just for you.
That mustache was, I was like, what happened? Did you have some chocolate milk or something?
I know. I had never grown out my facial hair. This is total tangent, but I'm like, let's just see what happens. I was in LA for a while. I'm going to try and get some
failed experiment.
Yeah, it was a failed experiment. I shaved right before my brother's wedding, and now I'm here. I was tempted, though, to keep it for you.
Yeah.
But I knew you'd probably kick me out.
No, I wouldn't have kicked you out. I would have directed you to one of the many bathrooms we have here in the studio and given you some edge shaving gel, and we would have just cleaned that mess up.
Yeah. Hopefully I look all right.
Don't worry. When I don't shave, I look like a drug dealer or something, or a homeless person. So we don't all have equal facial hair abilities. Yeah. But let's get back to it. What's your thesis? Do you have one? After these first 37 investments in your $3 million micro fund, I guess we call that a pop-up fund.
Or nano fund. I don't know what to call it. People
micro?
have different.
What do you call it? Nano fund?
Some people say nano fund. Micro fund for some people is like $50 million fund, which is totally different. Yeah. I mean, some people call it that. So we need better definitions.
Yeah.
I think.
Anyway, you have your first fund of $3 million to make angel investments. It's an angel fund.
Essentially, yeah. It's been 2 years now since I've started.
And what's the thesis? What's your theory? And then the next question, you can take in whichever order you want. Did you have a thesis when you started? And do you have a thesis now if they changed?
Yeah. So I, like some investors, they focus specifically on one vertical, one space. They own it. They become an expert in it. For me, I've always considered myself somewhat of a generalist anyway. And while I do focus on a couple of particular things like product, marketing, community is kind of where I think I can provide help and value. And that's, where I spend a lot of my time in product hunt. I generally am more of a generalist when it comes to investing as well. And so the weekend fund is really focused on early stage investing. It's $3 million fund, investing 50 to 100K check size. And these are usually investing in the first round of funding. There's some later stage investments, which we can talk about later on, but the core focus is the first round of funding when they're super early. Maybe there's not even a product built yet. And what I'm looking at a lot of times is really looking for people who are building for platform shifts and consumer behavior shifts. In other words, like who's building something really interesting today that's super nascent for a future that they're imagining or can articulate in some way.
So you don't have a specific vertical that you focus on, like, say, Jason Lemkin at SaaStr, or maybe some other people who say they focus on marketplaces. So you're agnostic to a specific vertical, and you're looking for a market that has yet to materialize or maybe is just starting to materialize. Did I summarize that correctly?
Largely. And there's some investments certainly that don't exactly fit that sort of thesis. I'm not super strict around that. But a lot of them are like audio and voice is a category that I'm super interested in as a consumer, but also as an investor, as we're seeing more and more smart speakers. There's probably a few of them here in this room, I'm sure. There's one right behind you, actually.
Yeah, it's unplugged.
Thank God. Because otherwise, Alexa.
CIA.
Yeah, you turned it off.
Yeah. Okay, Google.
Yeah.
I have my phone on. That's interesting. Okay, Google works. Is it even in airplane mode?
There you go.
Okay, Google works. I didn't know that would work.
It's listening to us.
It's listening to us. Yeah, you can put it in airplane mode. The CIA can still listen. So you have a thesis that audio interfaces and audio in general are going to work. Is that driven because of the AirPod phenomenon, which means people can keep audio in their ears longer, or voice? I guess those are the two wide nows in that category, huh? Voice recognition.
Yeah, certainly that's part of the theme. I think when you look at it from a platform perspective, so you have, I think the latest numbers that I saw reported were around 70 million US homes have a smart speaker. Most of that's Alexa or like an Echo kind of device, but a lot of Google Home devices as well. And also Alexa's being integrated into microwaves and clocks and everywhere. And so that number, it's about a quarter of the US population has a smart speaker, which is kind of crazy if you think about 3-4 years ago.
How quickly that happened.
Super quick.
Yeah.
And I even remember seeing a stat before Christmas last year. I think it was around 40 million was the report, and it jumped up to 60 to 70 million shortly after that.
They're so cheap.
They're so cheap. Amazon is promoting them like crazy. They're bundling them, for $20 or $30, you can get an Echo Dot. So we're seeing a lot of proliferation of this hardware now. A lot of people are like, well, what do you use it for? Music, weather, maybe calendar, and nothing else. And that's true to some extent. Like it's TBD on exactly how people are going to build on top of this platform and build interesting experiences or let alone businesses on it. But I think the same is true for mobile. Like you think about mobile in the early days, it didn't have an app store in the beginning. It didn't have a lot of the infrastructure nor the like consumer behavior, like the understanding of how to use the device in the beginning. Yeah. And the same thing is true for voice. Like we're still figuring out how do we even use our voice to interact with technology.
Yeah, I mean, it literally parallels the smartphone and the PDA revolution. When the PDA came out, people thought it would be for trading business cards. The Palm Pilot's first, killer app was to point your Palm Pilots at each other. You had to get within 6 inches of the IR. They had some sort of, infrared at the tip of it, and you would flip your business card to each other. You didn't have to carry a business card. You just carry a device that had a battery life of 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then the other one was to send money between each other. And that's actually what PayPal was going to be, was sending money between PDAs. And then they were like, well, kind of the last thing had scale, email. And PDAs don't have scale. So why don't we just make it by email? It's less friction. And it kind of worked. What have you looked at in community? Because it seems to me that you really mastered this combination of social plus community on Reddit. Is that because you grew up, on Product Hunt, is that because you grew up on Reddit and you kind of just learned about chaotic message boards?
Yeah.
How did you become an expert on community?
I don't know. Is the honest answer. I think it's a lot of what I've learned is just by doing things and following what I'm interested in. And so when I reflect on my childhood, I played a lot of video games. In fact, gaming is probably my gateway drug into technology. And it was not only my first career in startups was in gaming, but before that, gaming is kind of what led me into. Did you ever play StarCraft?
Sure.
Yeah.
I was in Age of Empires.
Yeah.
But I love that. Is that the category? Massively multiplayer online gaming?
StarCraft is an
RPG. RTS, real-time strategy.
Yes.
So it's real-time strategy. Oh, massively multiplayer online game would be
like World of Warcraft. Yeah.
World of Warcraft. Wow.
Yeah.
No, I like RTS, real-time strategy.
Yeah. I was
StarCraft.
huge fan of StarCraft and many other similar games.
Zerg, you played Zerg Rush?
I was actually more Protoss back then. Yeah, and then StarCraft 2 came along years later, and then I switched to Terran. But
what is Terran? Oh, Terran is the other. There's
like
three civilizations.
Yeah, they're the
Terran,
more human-like
Zerg.
race.
Zerg is like the bugs.
Yeah, they're like sort
Terran's
of
the
alien
humans, and Proton is like the power electricity
kinda
ones.
like sort of like alien-like creature.
Got it.
Yeah, but the reason why I mentioned StarCraft is because StarCraft was one of the first online games I started getting into, and the company Blizzard that made StarCraft, they had this thing called BattleNet, which is basically IRC. And so I first got introduced to BattleNet, started like learning about clans and meeting people on the internet and talking with them under a pseudonym. That then led me to IRC, which opened up this whole world of all kinds of stuff. Because like IRC is this kind of weird rabbit hole of the internet, which, doesn't exist in the same form. I think probably the equivalent today is like Twitter and Discord and various like internet forums is kind of equivalent to what IRC was back then.
And what was going on in IRC? It was just a bunch of like 15-year-old kids and developers talking insanity.
A lot of it was, so there's a lot of like illegal downloading in IRC and that whole world.
Trading wares.
Yeah. Trying to get movies and games for free, of course, like 0 day, 0 second uploads. So that was an interesting kind of.
Wait, what does that mean? 0 day, 0 second? Like the day when they come out?
The moment it comes out. There's a whole network of people, and, it still exists today, and I'm not a part of it at all. But, it was exploring that world back then, and people would release and illegally videos and screeners and whatnot, and it would just get distributed like this as an instant across multiple different servers.
It is crazy. It still occurs.
To communicate. Yeah, it still occurs, just in different ways.
BitTorrent and stuff like that, because people who are expats in China or France or whatever, and they want to watch Game of Thrones, there's some group of people who are ripping it in real time, which is crazy when you think about it. Yeah. Some group of people are so passionate about stealing movies and TV shows that they record them in real time and get them on the internet, and they kind of brand their clan of people who do it because they want credit. Yeah. Not monetary credit.
Is reputation. It's all about reputation. So
who can get it up first?
And even the way that these systems worked actually is you would get access if you through the network, through friends or people you met, you get access, and then you basically have to earn your keep. And so you'd upload basically movies and games to get credits, and you'd basically be ranked on a leaderboard. So this is kind of where the social and community aspects kind of come into play. Is you have these communities that are distributed, that are working together, that are doing largely it for access, but largely for reputation within this community.
All right, when we get back, I want you to tell me about what investments you've made based upon the community thesis and reputation thesis that you learned as a kid playing video games and hanging out in IRC with your parents not knowing. When we get back on Angel. Hiring is so hard. It is probably the hardest thing you're going to do aside from raising money. And you know what? A lot of the people I know who raise money, they have a harder time finding team members. It's arduous. It's hard out there. We have incredibly low unemployment, and there's a massive, massive competition for great talent. But luckily, there is LinkedIn Jobs. With more than 500 million active members, people come to LinkedIn every day to make connections, to grow their careers, and to discover new job opportunities. 90% of LinkedIn users are open to new opportunities, but they're not actively looking on job boards. You know these people, you're probably one of them. So LinkedIn Jobs gives you access to an entirely different demographic that doesn't exist anywhere else. We call those passive job seekers. They might not be looking for a job, but they would consider a new gig if it was better. And we found Director Sir Charles and our marketing manager Maureen on LinkedIn. You need LinkedIn Jobs to find the right people for your business, and you will get targeted job promotion, recommended matches, and candidate management through a dashboard that tracks everyone from application all the way to hire, all in one place. So you're not going to lose valuable candidates. LinkedIn Jobs uses knowledge of both hard skills like cloud computing, social media marketing, video production, whatever it is, and soft skills like collaboration and time management. And they do that to match people who fit your role best in your company. So here is your call to action. Post a job today at linkedin.com/angel, ANGEL, and get $50 off your first job posting. That's right, a 50 from JCal and your friends at LinkedIn by going to linkedin.com/angel. It's that simple. Terms and conditions, of course, apply. Let's get back to this amazing episode. Hey, welcome back to Angel. My guest today, Ryan Hoover, who has been a guest on my other podcast, This Week in Startups, many times. But now he's moved from being just a founder to being an investor and founder. Mm-hmm. Which one do you like better?
I like both.
You
it's
like
kind of
both?
like peanut
Me
butter
too.
and jelly. It's
Yeah.
better together. I don't know.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. Although people frequently deride the ADD folks like us who do both. Mm-hmm. I kind of like doing both, but I do understand people's position. When we left you and the Weekend Fund, I'd ask you about your thesis on investing, and community is part of it, and reputation in community and wanting to move up the leaderboard. So obviously Product Hunt had a lot of those dynamics in it. Mm-hmm. I know this because Product Hunt would start the voting at midnight. Mm-hmm. And then every founder I had, because I don't know, somehow I became a super router on Product Hunt. I guess because I authenticated my Twitter and my Facebook.
You're pretty early. Your user number is probably in the 3 digits.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was early. And I guess because I authenticated my Twitter back in the day, Facebook, it would bring those friends along with you. I don't know if you can still do that anymore. Can you still do that? Bring the social graph with you or no?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, it's a little harder now, or is still Facebook lets you do it? I thought Facebook cracked down on that because of the whole Cambridge Analytica of like bringing your friends.
Yeah, it's still working as far as I know, unless we need to check something.
No, you know what it probably is it probably, if your friends show up there, then it connects you. But anyway, I started having, I don't know, tens of thousands of followers or connections. Mm-hmm. So then everybody who wanted to post their launch on Product Hunt in my portfolio was like, will you do it for us? And I was like, oh my Lord. So literally at 12:15, once a week for a year, I was setting my alarm in case I fell asleep to go post for people.
Too kind. We actually introduced finally, this is probably 2 or 3 months ago, the ability to schedule launches.
Oh,
and
thank the Lord.
It's a request that founders have asked forever, and there's reasons why we didn't do it, but now you can go to bed.
You shouldn't have done it. You should have made people stay up. For the person...
It's kind of part of the fun, though, too, for some
I know.
Yeah.
Take that feature out. So what have you invested in, and what haven't you invested in, and how do you make a decision? Because community is one of the hardest things to invest in. Right? Like most people don't like to invest in community, even though we have some outliers like Reddit or Twitter is a community. And how do you make a decision on what have you invested in that space?
Yeah, so I think it's really hard to build a community, and not every business should have a community aspect. I think communities is sort of trendy. It's like some ways people think, oh, community is the hot next thing and everyone should have a community. That's not really true. But you can build a really strong business and defensibility by building community on top of your core product and core offering. So I'll mention one company, VoiceFlow, I invested in, which goes back to the audio voice kind of focus. They're a super simple tool to build voice apps in the browser, no code. I built a joke app in about 10 minutes just for fun in the browser. You know, I'm not an engineer.
So it's
either.
like Twilio for voice? Would you say?
Not
Squarespace for voice?
More like Squarespace for voice or Wix for voice is how I describe it. And so you can build really complex apps, for yourself, for your business, whatever it may be. And one of the reasons why I got really excited about VoiceFlow and committed to invest was the founder and specifically Braden, the CEO's focus on community, which doesn't necessarily need community to build a product, and almost like a SaaS-based product like that. You don't need community per se, but it's such a strength for their business and where they're heading long term. And the way they've done this is they have, it sounds basic, but they have a Facebook group and they're super early, but they use this Facebook group and speak with their community and get feedback from them in a really authentic way. Braden will do vlogs basically with his camera, super authentically speaking to his Facebook group, his community, and just like say, hey, here's what so-and-so is building. Here's what's coming up. Thanks for the suggestion, Bob. Thanks, Sarah, for submitting your app to the marketplace, things like that. And this focus has allowed them to really build more of a community around this sort of nascent group of people who are building voice apps, which are very underserved. There's no really place for them to go to, or at least a single brand, canonical brand for them to
So it
attach
creates like
themselves
a there. There's like something for you to do if you're passionate about it. Just like if you were using BattleNet and you were passionate about StarCraft, joining a clan would lead you to learn how to do the Zerg rush or some esoteric technique, tower defense, whatever, some, crazy techniques and just bond and geek out.
Yeah,
It
and
becomes
learn
like
together is the cool thing, because people are exploring this nascent space and figuring out what can they use voice flow for, but more specifically, what can you do? What kind of voice apps could we create together?
Gotcha.
And so they share this sort of like a show and tell in this Facebook group. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's neat. And then you also have Girl Boss.
Yeah, that's right.
Sophia Amorosa's company. And they're doing live events, which are super community driven, but they're also going to release at some point a LinkedIn for women. Is that right? Yeah. That's what they've been sharing.
I was in LA last 2 months or so and met up with Sophia to talk about and kind of jam on some ideas around that. And, Sophia is kind of a natural community builder, really. I mean, she started off more just selling things on eBay, fashion, like products. And over time, she sort of has built a brand and wrote a book. And there's a Netflix show based on her story. But she's just a natural community builder. And that's the thing this is sort of the X factor in this founder, Sophia, that got me committed and excited to participate.
And then Breaker, the podcasting app, you're also in. Is that Leah Culver's?
Yeah, Leah and Eric.
Yeah, she had made Pounce, which was a Twitter clone back in the day, which was so much better than Twitter. It had like so many cool features. Like Twitter didn't have image hosting. It didn't have video. It didn't have location. It didn't have any of that stuff, and they just built it all in. Pounce was so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why they stopped producing it. They shouldn't have shut it down. They should have kept going.
Yeah.
There needs to be an alternative.
Yeah. I don't know.
So.
I mean, there are alternatives. It's just hard. Network effects of Twitter are so strong. I mean,
it is really strong.
For you to switch your entire audience and focus from Twitter right now with your following and brand to something new is tough.
It is tough, but I mean, it really, I woke up the other day, I had 20,000 followers on Instagram, which is weird because I don't really use it for anything but posting meat and that I'm grilling and my kids. That's like literally all I do. I don't think I've ever done a selfie on. I did one selfie in the last year and it got like 5. I guess that's the problem is I don't do selfies. And I did one and people were really excited about a selfie. But I just find like if you're an adult, like you're 32 now, right? What are you, 33?
Yeah, 32. Yeah.
Yeah, like you're aging out of selfies. Like you're about to, when you hit 35, the idea of a 35-year-old doing selfies is just so sad.
Or maybe just this behavior will move with this generation, and then the selfie is going to be the lame thing, for the kids that are 1 or 2 decades
next one.
younger.
So you think your millennial generation will be like 62 years old and being like, selfie, Coachella,
maybe.
My 40th Coachella in a row.
Yeah. I just went to my fifth
I was about to set the line. Thanks for ruining it. I was about to set the line at 4. That's how good of a gambler as I was going to say, pick the over-under of 4, Jackie.
Yeah.
And I think I would have gone 4 and under, not 5. But you've been to 5.
5, yeah.
And the best band, the best moment for you. Give me your best Coachella moment.
The best, this is an easy one, actually. So my first Coachella.
I knew it was. MGMT. I got it. Okay.
No. Porter Robinson.
Okay.
Do you know Porter Robinson?
No. What is it? A band or is it a?
It's a DJ.
It's a DJ.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were in the Sahara tent.
Actually, yes. It was
so
Sahara.
In the Sahara tent during the day, 2:00 in the afternoon, or was it 2 a.m.? There's a big
10
difference.
p.m.
Okay, so it's a nighttime.
Yeah,
so it's only 84 degrees.
Yeah, only 84.
And how close are you to the stage? Are you in the pit? Are you in the center? Or are you on the periphery? Because I don't even go. I'm on the periphery. I'm like 1 foot out of the tent.
Yeah, I was in the middle.
I put 1 foot in the tent. I keep 1 foot out of the tent just so I can make my exit.
Yeah, that's smart actually.
Yeah,
it can get crowded. We're in the middle.
You're in the middle. See, that's why the difference generationally. Like a Gen Xer, we're just like, you know what? If this sucks, I need to be able to bail immediately. But you're a millennial. You're all in. You go right to the center.
Yeah.
I would never go to the center of the Sahara tent.
Oh, it's so fun. If you follow me on Instagram or if you check out my Instagram, you can scroll back actually. I have
There's
a video.
selfies of you in the Sahara tent.
There might be, but there's a video and it encapsulates the whole moment.
Yeah.
When you're in the middle, and this is why I love live music. And I'm going off on a tangent, but I love live music. I love concerts because it's sort of this moment to sort of forget about work and just come amongst all these people. It's like a tribal expense.
Yeah.
And just dance and have fun and listen to good music. It's a good
Now,
time.
when you first go, you just got the general admission tickets. But now that you're an investor and you got all these huge management fees, I'm assuming you had the $5,000 VIP. You were backstage. You have a trailer. What did you have?
No, we do GA. And actually, I don't take any
You're in
management
general
fees.
pop?
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
Honestly, it's not that big of a difference.
No, I
And
know.
when
I had the
you're-
VIP.
It's not worth it, in my opinion.
For the bathrooms, I'd say yes, it is.
Well, that is a nice luxury. But for 3
I mean,
times
having like
the cost,
100 porta potties and like 2 are in use and all of them
Yeah.
are clean,
yeah,
that's kind of worth it.
yeah.
The wait on the porta potty is pretty crazy.
It's gotten better.
Has it?
Yeah, this past year it was like there was no lines. Porta potties weren't too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to
So-
This Week in Coachella Music Festivals. My
Yeah.
guest is Ryan Hoover. And Breaker, what was Breaker's concept here? Yeah, Sir Charles is like in the chat room. I'm so old. You are, Charles. You are. But you know what, Charles? I'm going to do a 40 and over trip to Coachella. Me, you, and Jackie are going. We're going to go the 40 and over trip. Anybody on our staff under 40, we're going to get you Gen Pop. I'm going to get VIPs for the over 40 crowd here. And to answer your question in the chat room, the entire tent, the Sahara tent, is open on all sides, basically. So you can walk in and out almost anywhere.
Unless you're in the middle, you're kind of stuck. It's hard.
In
to
the
get
middle,
out.
you're stuck. But I'm saying, like, if you're on the edge, it's kind of open. There's doorways up and down all sides. See, that's the move.
Yeah.
What was the thesis behind Breaker? Because you have Android has its own built-in podcasting player now. Obviously, iTunes created their own. What's your thesis of why you would create or why you would invest in? Because most people would be scared. It's a free product from Google and Apple, pre-installed in Apple's case on the phones. I guess Google doesn't pre-install the podcasting app, which is so
Yeah.
weird.
They announced it, I think, about a year ago. So
Oh,
this
maybe
is
they'll
actually
pre-install it in
after-
the next one.
Yeah, it's very likely that they will. They're
Yeah.
starting to actually show podcasts in search results that are playable too.
Big deal.
Which they're indexing as well, because historically podcasts haven't been really discoverable. At least is the same way that like text has been discoverable through SEO.
Hey, Nick, Emmy-nominated Nick, no Emmy Nick, can you make a note about SEO for our 2 podcasts in Google and just check it? I have to wait to figure out how that works. So why did you invest in Breaker?
So Breaker, what's funny about podcasts in general is if you are really familiar with the Product Hunt kind of history, we actually explored podcast discovery.
You
back in
did?
the day. Yeah.
You had a category, and I used to,
Mm-hmm.
myself and Kara Swisher used to post ours, but we were the only people posting our podcast.
Yeah, we had this small niche kind of group of podcast creators that loved
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Actually,
I did.
after we killed it, one person was really upset. They're like, "Wow, our downloads just dropped in half since you killed it," and they were really disappointed. And they found that the reason that what they were looking for was there was no community for podcasts on the internet. There were very few places to get your podcast discovered. Same thing with technology products.
Yeah.
Like, how do you get your app out there? How do you get users? And so there's a lot of similar characteristics to someone building an app to someone doing a podcast that we wanted to support and help on the Product Hunt, within the Product Hunt community and experience. That's a whole other conversation, but it failed. There are a number of reasons why it didn't work. But the thesis and the idea of there is a need for this, there's a need for discovery, there's a need for community around podcasts, stuck with me. And then Breaker was the first company I actually invested in. It was in YC 2017, I think, one of those batches. And I'd been following Leah for a while. I got to know Eric later on and invested because of just partly the need within the market of how do you build community, how do you support creators and help them get feedback and help them get listeners and so on.
All right, when we get back from this quick break, I want to talk about what you've learned after deploying almost all of the 3 million, what your future plans are, and how you think about joining another firm, which you could. I know you've had some offers to join some nice firms. You don't know that. I know that, but I know that. You had offers.
Yeah.
You didn't take them. People recruited you. You didn't take them. You've decided to stay independent and raise on Angelish, your own micro fund. I want to know how you came to that decision to not join a bigger firm and stay micro and independent. And then what your plans are for the future. What do you think about now that you've already done these 37 investments? And hey, you could work at a big firm. You could even raise a bigger fund, or you could join with a couple of these micro funds and maybe start your own. When we get back on Angel. Scaling sales is so hard. My startups are struggling to build their sales teams and increase the number of leads they get. It's hard to scale sales. We all know that. But you also already know that Salesforce is the world's #1 customer relationship management platform, which is also known as CRM in the business. And now with Salesforce Essentials, You get an easy out-of-the-box tool and support, all at a startup price point. And that's the key here. Salesforce wants to engage startups, and they're willing to give you a great price, which I'm about to get to. And the benefits include instant setup, and you can easily scale your sales team with just a couple of clicks. You don't need to code, and you will get simple integrations that connect and integrate all of your data under one roof. You'll have full cycle customer support, so you automatically connect multiple support channels in one place, and you'll be able to automate busy work and repetitive tasks, so you're not wasting time and money. Also, your customers can help themselves with a self-service support website. That makes it really easy breezy. Everything you need is on one screen, so you can track emails, calls, and meetings just from your inbox. Super easy. Get access to the world's #1 CRM at a cost fit for a startup. So here is your call to action. I want you to go to salesforce.com/angel and get a 50% discount with an annual contract and get a free onboarding training session. You got nothing to lose, and you're going to get that 50% discount. And really, thanks to the Salesforce team for being so generous to the startups who listen to This Week in Startups and Angel, my 2 podcasts. Go to salesforce.com/angel and get that 50% discount. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Angel, the podcast. We have a Patreon now for This Week in Startups, my other podcast. And the last 2 questions of this episode will be exclusively available to the Patreon subscribers who get ad-free experience, which is 0.01% of our user base, but maybe we'll grow to 1% if you're into such things. So you get your own custom RSS feed over there. And that's quite nice. I enjoy having the option to be ad-free and also getting that bonus material. So we're going to be working on that a whole bunch for you. Go to Patreon and type in a search for This Week in Startups. Okay. Let's go through it. Why didn't you join another firm? You could have gotten, let's face it, probably $250,000, $500,000 salary, and you could have been a partner at, an emerging firm. Mm-hmm. Why did you turn down those offers? I won't say which ones.
I'm curious which ones are on your mind.
I know everybody, Ron.
Yeah.
I know everybody. But you did turn down some, so let's talk about why.
Well, so it's been almost 2.5 years since the acquisition of Product Hunt by AngelList.
So you have a 4-year
logo here. Yeah. Well, transparently, it's like a 3-year primarily lockup, but lockup is such a weird word because it's at-will employment. I could leave tomorrow if I really wanted to. But
you're vesting some shares, and so that has value.
Vesting shares, there's certainly, economic reason to stay.
Sure.
But independent of that, for me, there's a lot, for lack of a better phrase, it's sort of like I have unfinished business at Product Hunt that I want to complete. And we have an amazing team. I have, some people have been with me for over 4 years now. So through most of this journey at Product Hunt, and they're amazing teammates, and they're really excelling and taking on more responsibility, which has allowed me to really think more strategically and focus more on the strategic stuff rather than day-to-day operations. And that's allowed me then to free up time to do investing also on the side. So to go back to your question around why not, leave and join a fund, I enjoy what I'm doing, and I know that I could learn a ton from joining a big firm and, from people who have invested way longer than I have. But I have more interest and passion and excitement around building my own thing and building my own brand longer term. And while Weekend Fund is tiny in the world of venture firms, and it's still only 2 years old, I'm hopeful that I can build it into something really meaningful long term and in a brand that people respect and want to be a part of. And that's more exciting to me right now. Now, maybe I'll join a firm someday, years in the future, but right now I just don't have. It's not the obvious right choice for me. I think.
And you learn a lot by being independent. It's a forcing function to sit in the captain's chair. So while you might not be in the second chair or the third chair in a big plane, you're at the controls of a small plane. Being at the controls of a small plane is most analogous to being at the controls of a big plane. And being the navigator or the flight attendant or a passenger in a big plane is not the same responsibility of even being in a small plane. So if you're in a little 4-seat Cessna right now, it's $3 million fund, I'd say that's closer to being a partner at a $30 or $300 million fund than it is to be the flight attendant or the navigator, on a big plane.
Yeah.
So I kind of agree with your strategy. What was the eventual business model going to be at Product Hunt? Because Product Hunt doesn't need to have a business model because AngelList is making $20 million off of jobs, from what I understand. So it's printing money. I'm sure that pays for everything. So Product Hunt can just be a place to aggregate data and, sort of be this full life cycle. It's quite brilliant of like, here's the product launching and here's the product getting staffed and getting funded. It's a brilliant, I think, merger or acquisition rather. What was your eventual plan for monetization? And did you ever turn on any monetization at Product Hunt? Didn't seem like it.
Yeah. So we started early last year, 2018. We started making it a priority actually to make money. Historically, we haven't. And now we're
5 years of not making money.
Yeah, it's like any company, you know, everything you prioritize is a trade-off for something else. And so revenue was not the priority at the time. Now, in hindsight, maybe it should have been at least part of our focus. But for us, 2018 was the year, okay, let's get to profitability. Now we're making more money than we're spending right now on the Product Hunt team. And so we built a model and it's working every single month, which is based primarily on product promotion, job promotion, event promotion, and then a couple other things like newsletter takeovers. So we have multiple products essentially, and they're all serving different startups. So whether they're small indie startups, with maybe seed funding to companies like Segment or
you have that page with the startup packages. That's a revenue opportunity.
That's one of them. Yeah, Founder Kit, which is a bunch of deals for like Algolia to AWS and so on.
Got it.
But honestly, the simplest, the thing that's worked the best is the most obvious and most simple product of ours, which is promoted posts on the homepage. So we sell one slot. It's the fourth slot down on the homepage to one company at a flat fee.
What does it cost? I need to get on this. $1,000?
It's between like $4,000 to $6,000 per day is what we're charging.
That's it?
Yeah.
Huh. And how many clicks, downloads does it typically drive? A couple of thousand?
It varies. It can be a lot more than that depending on like the partner and how it's positioned.
Do those votes count towards your overall votes then? So is it a way to kind of goose your votes?
So the way we actually approached it, because the worry is with any community, you introduce any way to make money and people are like, oh no, game it, or oh no, it's pay to play.
Yeah.
And so the way that we're doing it is it's always products that were posted before in the past. You can't launch a new product and then pay to be in the spot.
Smart.
So this way it's always something that's been essentially validated or upvoted by the community in the past. And
so smart. You came up with that
issue. Yeah, I don't remember if it was me or someone on the team, but
So smart. So you can't win today, but if this community works for you, if you're like some SaaS product, or if you're, let's say, Breaker, and Breaker was number 3 on the day they launched, or number 2, whatever, that day's passed. But if they're paying $5 an install on Facebook, maybe you can beat Facebook installs for $1 because these are high quality people.
Yeah, it's that, and it's also, frankly, we're selling the brand too. Like, this is unique real estate. You own it. There's only one spot.
So smart.
And if you want to get in front of this early adopter tech community, a lot of investors, a lot of reporters, here's the place for you.
If you had introduced that before you sold, would you have been able to sustain the company as an independent company? And do you think about that ever? Like the seller's regret?
I don't have seller's regret at all. But if we introduced it sooner, we could have covered... So it's about a third of our revenue to a half of our revenue that we're making right now. So we could have covered a significant amount of our burn if we introduced it sooner.
Yeah, like a third or something. Yeah. You would have been in spitting distance.
Yeah.
So how does that experience as a founder then relate to the value you provide to new founders? Do you advise them to maybe, because we had this little moment here where you said like, if you put on monetization, you're burning cycles that could go to community building or other things. When is the right time? And when do you advise a startup to turn on revenue?
Yeah. So everything, like things in life, you give advice based on your own experiences and learnings. And when I do give advice or my opinions, I always caveat with, context can be different. The community that Sophia, for example, is building there's a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences too. And so my experiences in building product are not necessarily going to be exactly applicable to what she's building at Girlboss. So that's sort of the asterisk I put with every piece of advice I do give. But with me, what's nice about being an early stage investor is I have more alignment with the founder than typically a later stage investor, in the sense that it's in my best interest for this company to survive and succeed. And if they exit for $100 million, I'm happy. Like, economically, I'm super happy. Whereas with other later stage investors, they need these companies to really go big. And so there actually might be a trade-off where it might be in the best interest to de-risk the company by starting to generate revenue today rather than tomorrow. And the later stage investors would rather them take the slightly higher chance of them not generating revenue today at the chance of growing bigger, faster, and either burning out or becoming that $1 billion exit.
How do you think about your next fund and the loneliness of not having a partner on the existing fund and not having any management fees. So basically, you only make money when you return. You get 20%, I take it, of any dollar amount returned past $3 million, which means you don't get paid any cash now. You're going to start receiving money for Weekend Fund 1, best case scenario, in year 6, in all likelihood.
Yeah.
And you're in year 2 or 3.
Yeah, in my late 30s, I might make some money from it. So a couple of things, actually. I did bring on a chief of staff recently, about 2 months ago.
I know. We had a whole controversy on Twitter. I forgot about that.
Yeah. She's been amazing. She joined
part-time
as well. She's
20 hours a week.
Actually, I don't know. I don't count her hours.
Oh God. Okay.
But she's kind of like me. She loves working on the weekends. She's super autonomous. She's proactive. She's helping me with a number of things, from evaluating investments, doing market research, diligence, to even sourcing, everything in between.
How did you get around the management fee? So for people who don't know, you put up an opportunity to work part-time, like 20 hours a week, like you do, on spec for a return.
Actually, it's more like, I think I forget the exact hours I put there, but somewhere between 8 to 15 hours. So it was
a week.
Fluctuating. It wasn't like a specific amount.
Okay, let's call it 12 hours a week.
Yeah.
Not even part-time. It would be like a hobby. You put this amazing opportunity to do a hobby, and you got savaged on Twitter for offering people a job that had compensation the same as yours, the same as any angel investor, which is, in year 6, you will get part of the carry, and it's uncapped. If it hits, if we hit an Uber, if we hit a Robinhood, this could be, hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions of dollars potentially. And you got savaged by the Twitter mob, which is ridiculous.
And to the Twitter mom's credit, I can't believe I'm saying that. I
give them zero credit. They're a bunch of lunatics.
Yeah, I did. The way I positioned it, the words I used were poorly worded.
Really?
I said, I don't think people, because the thing with with Twitter mobs and quoting, when people take a quote out of context of the situation, people make assumptions, and then it spirals into a thing. They assume
bad faith, because you said job. Was that the thing, or you?
It was the way there was some language I used that basically said this isn't a paid position when it is, just not paid in cash initially.
Right.
And so the way that people interpreted it was, I'm asking for free work and free labor, and I'm taking advantage of people. That
triggered a bunch of the libs. You triggered the libs, the snowflakes.
Yeah,
what a bunch of idiots, honestly.
Yeah,
I know you can't say it, but I can. Here's the difference. I've made my money already. You people are idiots. Honestly, what a bunch of idiots. I wrote a vibrant defense of your position, which is, idiots. If you take this position and you work for 12 hours a week with Ryan for free, and you get, let's say you gave them 10% of the carry, 2 of your 20 points, and you return $10 million. You get $2 million, they get $40,000 for essentially would have been 2 years worth of work, 10 hours a week. That's a pretty good deal for just 10 hours a week. And now you've got on your resume that I help source deals for Ryan Hoover, somebody who's known. Listen, you're not proven in the venture space yet, but you're a known quantity in the entrepreneurial space. Now you've got an entree into Naval, AngelList. You had Andreessen Horowitz as investors. It is like the easiest on-ramp. And these idiots are like, oh, there's an on-ramp? Oh, you're taking advantage of people. It's like, oh my God. People are so ridiculous.
It's tough. Well, despite that feedback, I had hundreds of applications. A lot of people were excited. So
before you made it paid?
Before, yeah. And I did shift it, and I have some new thoughts around, like, it's important to me that the person that does accept the job feels well compensated, whether it's through cash or carry or a mixture of both. Basically it was provided different options there for that person.
Oh, okay. So you told them, like, listen, you can take 10% of the carry and no cash. You can take 5% of the carry, some cash, or 1% of the carry and more cash.
Yeah.
Give them like 2 or 3 options.
It's kind of like, and I've done this with people I've hired at Product Hunt too. Some people care a lot about equity. Some people need more cash compensation for financial reasons.
Right.
And so we just lay out the options. Do you want more equity, less equity, more cash, less cash? So
the thing I object to so much is that I know you as an individual, and I assume good faith, and I know the opportunity. The problem with the hysterical mobs on Twitter, right and left, is they just want to destroy somebody for sport and assume bad faith. They could have just asked you, like, well, would you consider paying somebody and giving them less comp? Or what if the person needs some money to live off of? Would you give them a stipend of $500 a month, minimum wage, and give them you would have been like, yeah, sure, I'll consider that. Instead, they're just like, rich person, which you're not rich yet. You have equity. You will be, but I assume you're not rich yet, right? Your trust fund is... parents are giving you the trust fund at 45 or something?
Yeah, no trust fund.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
You're doing
grew up
okay.
in the middle, doing okay.
Yeah.
Doing okay, but I'm not going to retire anytime soon. That's for
Exactly.
sure.
You have to work.
Yeah, even if everything materializes that's on paper right now, I'm not going to be able to retire.
So how do you think about the next fund?
Yeah.
How do you think about it? Do you think I want to, now that you've done the $3 million one with the help of AngelList pop-up funds, which these things only cost, I think, $75,000 to set up over 10 years. Is that the ballpark?
Yeah,
100,000.
They have different pricing and kind of like ways of actually in the first fund there was no payment of any kind actually.
Right, you give them 25% of the carry.
Yeah, a piece of the carry, smaller piece than that.
10% of the carry, got it. Okay.
Yeah, and so you don't.
I think it's out there anyways.
Yeah. The numbers are out there. They make it super easy to manage all the back office and everything else that goes into like the boring stuff, the logistics of setting up a fund, and make it economical for a small, tiny fund. Because imagine there are people with $1 million funds on AngelList. Imagine if you had to spend $100,000 paying a lawyer and getting everything set up, and now you're already 10% in the hole.
Yeah, it should be no more than 5%. I think would be the rule of thumb.
Yeah.
And I think you can set that up now thanks to some of the back end technologies out there and the creative stuff that different people have done. Yeah. So, but the management fee still is an issue. So are you thinking for your next, because in my first fund, I didn't take a management fee. In my next fund, I did a 30% carry and it capped at 10% management fee because we're doing accelerator investments,
different model, right?
Which are at a $1.67 million or $2 million valuation, something in that range because you have to run it, but you have a cost. You need to have somebody running it. So of a $10 million fund, that means you have $1 million over the life of the fund to run the accelerator, which takes, 2 years to deploy active and then 8 years of non-active management of the fund. So you're thinking about doing something like that, maybe take a capped 10% management fee for the next one or something?
Yeah, so in the next fund, I'll be taking a management fee this time. Now, granted, it's a management fee.
2% a year, 3% a year.
2%. Some of it, actually, the way the economics work, will go to AngelList, some will go to me. And that's how they get paid. That's how they make money. But it's on a small multiple, of course. I'm not raising a $50 or $100 million fund.
Yeah, if you raise a $10 million, you take 2% a year for whatever number of years, and it caps
it's $200K. Let's say I could take half that. It's $100K a year, so it's not much money.
It's something.
It's something, and it's enough to
you build a website.
Build a website.
Pay for your Google Docs admin.
Yeah, I mean, it means I don't have to pay out of pocket to support, pay for the chief of staff and the cash compensation piece. It also gives me a little bit of budget to work with on the fund itself.
What makes a great? Now I'm going to do these rapid fire questions. What makes a great founder?
Great founder. This might be a cop-out answer, but it's contextual. I think it's based on what they're building because depending on what you're building, ideally that founder can have the strongest skill set to solve the biggest problem. And so for me, I think when I think about it generally, it's someone who's has a strong perspective of the future and knows doesn't know the answers, but knows what they're going to be building toward, if that makes sense.
Do you invest in pre-launch startups?
Yeah.
How do you make the decision when there is no product or customers?
Yeah. So sometimes many times there's a saying that for some people is a little bit controversial, but founder market fit. And it depends on how you define it. For me, founder market fit isn't necessarily this person came from this industry and is building for this industry, but it's more about this person has some unique quality that's competitive in the market to solve this problem in this industry. And it might be extreme passion or domain expertise or something that just makes them sort of this X factor. Going back to Sophia, she has this X factor when it comes to community building and getting people excited and kind of part of a mission.
I think her superpower is people want to hang out with her and be in her orbit and they like her style. And now I know this sounds super vapid, because style seems like, well, what does style matter, right? In a business. But if you think her business previously was as a curator of clothes she would find and then resell. Well, you need to have an eye for style. And then if you watch her on social media, she does 4 outfit changes a day on her Snap stories. And each one you're like, wow, That's a really interesting outfit. And oh wow, they really took a nice picture, or they did a nice, what do they call it when you make a video that does like a little loop, like a vine? What is the one called on Instagram? A boomerang. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like a boomerang. And then you go to her events, and everything is set designed in Instagrammable moments. So the set and the stage and the photo booth and the place where you get a glass of water is all gorgeous. That counts for something, actually, I think. So I think it's an interesting.
She's also really authentic and pretty vulnerable.
Yes.
Actually, it's something that people gravitate towards. Is they really want to connect with people who feel like real people, not like Actually, if you had Casey on your podcast recently, and Casey was one of our live chat guests. He drove the most traffic, more than Snoop Dogg and a bunch of other people who are more traditional celebrities.
Yeah.
Nothing against Snoop Dogg. I think what he's doing is really awesome, but he comes from a different world where it's more like a character in a way. And
feels
Casey,
less authentic.
Less authentic a little bit. And Casey's like he's a selfie like vlogger person. Like it feels
it's
like
100% authentic. He's
and
like,
so,
I had a kid at 15. I was dealing weed at 16. I left my home. I mean, he was just raw.
Yeah. So Sophia's kind of like that too, in how she communicates.
Yeah, because Nasty Gal failed. She wound up taking a bunch of money off the table in secondary, which was good for her, but it did fail. It was she lost control of her own company, and now she's starting over. So it's almost like Girl Boss is this redemption or revenge kind of startup. Like, I'm going to build something even bigger now. People love that kind of theme. How do you think? How do you value a business pre-launch, and how do you value it when they have some amount of traction?
Value from a
valuation.
Valuation.
Yeah. We hear 6 million cap in Silicon Valley to 15 million people coming out of Y Combinator, and they've got 2 weeks of traction. How do you think about the valuation range here in Silicon Valley, and what's too expensive, what's just right, and what's too cheap?
So being an early stage investor, I'm not leading rounds, so I don't set the price exactly, but I do make decisions based on price. And so there's some really, really amazing companies who are doing well that I passed on that were, let's say, 35 mil pre-launch.
$35 million valuation before they launched.
Yeah, and these are exceptional. Now, these are exceptional founders and teams that can build things. So, maybe it was a mistake, but when you look at the economics of a 50K check in a 35 mil pre-launch company, this company's got to be $3 billion, $4 billion exit for it to be really meaningful for the fund.
Yeah.
And so I do take price into consideration. And if you think about the reality is a lot of these companies are going to fail. And would it be best for me to put this check into 3 companies or 1 company? Because this company is a 12 mil cap or 15 mil cap versus the average being 5 or 6 mil.
And if you do that,
difference.
You're going to triple your chances of hitting an outlier. What do you think the number of investments you need to hit is in order to hit a unicorn, let's call it a 100x, 200x return? How many investments do you think you need to make in the Silicon Valley to hit a 100 or 200x return?
I wish I remembered the name of this blog post, but there's a bunch of different people who've done analysis on this, and there's certainly diminishing returns when it comes to the odds that you're putting out. So if you invest in 5 companies, the reality is you're probably not going to hit a unicorn. If you do, good luck, but you're probably not in the earliest stage of, like I am investing in the first round of funding. And then once you get to 30, 40 companies or so in a portfolio, that's when it starts to become more distributed. And the reality is you can only lose 1x your money. So if I put 50K in a company, that's the most I can lose in that company, but it could 10x, could 100x, 5,000x like Uber did. And so I think
Uber
about
5,000x?
Wasn't it 5,000 or something?
Oh my God, I got to check my portfolio.
Something like that.
It was 5,000x actually. Yeah.
It's sizable. And so this first fund will be roughly 40 companies by the end. And that was intentional.
And if you were doing the same check size, if a $75,000 check goes 100x, 10 times 75 is 750, 100 times 75 is 7.5 million. It takes you only 150x, let's say, 150x, and you return the entire fund, and you're in the black. 100x, you've now cash on cash doubled. But with a small $3 million fund, you don't have the reserves to do follow-on, so that leads to our next question. How do you think about follow-on funding? Because you have pro rata in every deal, and do you insist on having pro rata in every deal? And then how do you think of follow-on funding? So there's 2 questions there for you.
Yeah. So most deals I do have pro rata. There's certain situations where it just doesn't work out. You can't make it happen. But it's something I ask for and push for in every single deal. And that said, I don't have enough money to follow on with $1 million check, when the Series D comes along. But that's where SPVs come into play. And so AngelList, of course, has been known for supporting and before the fund kind of product existed, syndicates is how people invested through AngelList. So very easily, I'm able to spin up an SPV to invest, let's say, a $500K allocation in a pro rata deal for a hot company that I have an allocation in. Now that does require me to effectively raise that money, but if it's a good company and my LPs want to participate, this is a great way for them to do so.
So you can just do an SPV, pop it up, and then offer them. And you could also syndicate it to other people.
That too. Mm-hmm.
Who weren't in the original one. How many companies do you look at? Let's say review digitally. They email you or they send you a business plan, and then how many do you meet with in person in order to get to writing a check? So think it through for a second.
Yeah. How
How many meetings to get to a check, and how many reviewing of documents does it take to get to the meetings to get to that one?
Yeah. I actually don't have this quantified, so I can make some estimated
Ballpark,
guesses.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we all get a lot of emails, whether it's warm introductions or cold emails. So that's in the number of hundreds a month. Probably emails come in. The reality is I'm unable to really look at all those deals thoroughly. Let's say that of the companies that I actually meet with, and I usually do a video call actually for most meetings.
Oh, really? You Zoom it out?
I do Zoom.
Meeting, Zoom?
Yeah, Zoom or Google Hangouts. It's actually just a lot more efficient. I don't have to travel.
Yeah.
I find it 95% as effective as being in person, personally.
I have to think this through because I have a no Zoom meeting right now because I want to look people in the eye and spend a little bit of time with them. I also want to see if they have the wherewithal to come meet me in person because I consider it a test. But I might be ancient and making a mistake.
Yeah.
I wonder if I have to change that.
I mean, there's two benefits, I guess. One is you can save time, both parties. You don't have to travel. They don't have to travel. In some ways, actually, you can have less unnecessary small talk. Sometimes small talk is good and kind of getting to know people, but I feel like there's more of that in person that may not be necessary to evaluate a company. And then the other thing is you have access to the world in terms of the companies that you might be investing in. So in Weekend Fund, we've invested in 37 companies. About 35% are San Francisco based, and the rest are everything from Canada to one in London that I'm looking at right now that we're committed to New Orleans. Actually,
so what do you think it is? You got hundreds of emails coming in. You make 1 or 2 investments a month, so it's got to be, let's call it 250 emails for one investment. How many in-person or web meetings do you do before investing?
If I was to guess, I'd say 10 to 1, which might be on the lower side than
that's really low. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's partly because it's earlier stage than there's not as much diligence or there's no product. So you can't really talk to customers. You can't do that type of research. So as a result, you pay a cheaper price than, later stage.
What's your average valuation? Would you say median valuation?
Median's around 6.5, like pre-money. Typically.
So when you put in your 75K, you're buying basically 1%. Is that your thesis?
Roughly
by 1%, and we'll see what happens. Would you advise founders today, because you made the trip and you moved from where to Silicon Valley?
Oregon. Yeah.
You moved from Oregon. Lovely, beautiful, affordable, crime-free, nature.
Yeah, there's
gorgeous.
Some meth and stealing and.
Oh, how's the meth? Is it good?
I don't know. I've stopped staying up to date, but it's a problem.
Yeah, it's a problem. And you moved here. What would you advise the next Ryan Hoover who's considering moving here? If they've raised their $1 million seed fund, should they move here or not?
So if they're an investor?
No, they are starting Product Hunt. They've raised $1 million round. Should they move from Oregon or Portland or San Diego to San Francisco in 2019, 2020?
I think this goes back to another cop-out answer. It kind of depends on what you're building. So I think
they're building Product Hunt or Breaker.
If they're building for the tech world, be here. Now that doesn't mean your whole team needs to be here. So Product Hunt wouldn't exist if I didn't move to San Francisco in 2010. Not because, the reality is most of my relationships and most of what we built is all digital, but being here gave me access to build relationships over between 2010 to 2013, 14, built so many relationships and connections, and also got exposed, I think, to new ideas that I still probably to this day can't really articulate or even recognize. But being here gave me like this DNA, I think, to be able to build Product Hunt. And that said, the Product Hunt team is all over the world. So right now, actually today, Jack is on maternity leave. She's the only other person in San Francisco and me right now. Everyone else is around the world.
So the high art today, the best advice is, founders be here, incur the brunt of the cost of living and the insanity, but build your team remote. You believe in building remote teams.
Yeah, I think if I was going to start another company tomorrow, it's probably how I would build it. And I could go on and on of why that is. But also I will mention that not every company needs to be built in San Francisco. And if you, let's say you're building a media company or a fashion company or a music company, probably should be in LA, but you can also build your team remotely. So my girlfriend, Susie, she just co-founded the company with Troy, and it's
Troy Carter.
Troy Carter. Yeah.
Troy Carter.
Yeah.
Big deal.
She's been working with him for,
I know.
since
I
we
met her.
Yeah.
I met her when I was down there. I didn't know she was your girlfriend. She had told me that though.
Yeah.
It's like, really?
She met Troy and me in the same month.
Really?
Funny enough. Yeah. And so anyway, they're building in the music industry. So they're in LA, but they're thinking about how to build and grow a team and considering hiring remotely as well.
Yeah. Do you think about the total addressable market when you're making an investment? Or you said earlier that you're looking for markets that are emerging, which would mean they're harder to define. Do you care about that? Because it seems like at every demo day, people are on stage yelling and screaming, food is a $15 trillion TAM. Transportation's a $20 million TAM. Travel is a $10 trillion TAM. Does any of that matter to people, you think?
I think it depends on if you're building for a mature market, let's say, then I think those TAM numbers make more sense because you can now project, okay, this market's probably not going to change dramatically in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of the number of people that might need this service or this product. But if it's for a nascent industry like voice and audio, that one's growing rapidly, and it's kind of hard to understand even, like, let's go back to mobile. How would we have known that mobile would enable Uber and all these other businesses? You couldn't really quantify that or measure that very easily.
No. I mean, you just make the assumption that everybody on the planet in 30 years would have one, or 20 years. And you could just work backwards from there, maybe, and then decide 80% of the planet will have one. Therefore,
but then your numbers are so high, it's like stupid to even think about it. It's like, okay, well, I need to just imagine, will enough people need this, and will they pay enough money, or will there be some way to derive enough revenue to make it a big business? And honestly, it's fuzzy math at the earliest stage.
Now for our final 2 Patreon questions. I'm going to ask the questions, and then we're going to cut them. You can only see the answers when you subscribe for Patreon, and we're going to have a $3 and $5 level. Right now, I think it's only 10 and 20. That was my mistake. So Master Nick put on a $3 and $5 level. Okay, these are the 2 questions. What's one thing people can do in a meeting, an investment meeting, that will get you to say yes? What is the thing that is most likely to get Ryan Hoover to say yes and write that check? And then conversely, what are the 1 or 2 things they can do or that you can discover during that meeting that make you pass? 3, 2, Patreon, boom.
All right. So one thing I love is when they...
That is such a great answer. I feel the same way. When I come out of a meeting and I feel that way, I am more likely to write a check. Hey, listen, Ryan, thanks for coming on the pod. Pretty easy to find Ryan. He's RR Hoover, 2 O's, on the Twitter, weekend.fund, producthunt.com, and all around great guy. He's on AngelList as well, angel.co/RR Hoover. And congratulations on all the great investments. You're going to do great. And you got one. Look, you got your first little acquisition going on there. Little yummy yum yum.
Yeah, little
Spectrum
from GitHub. Yeah, GitHub acquired them.
Cash or stock? What do you got? A little bit
I
of
don't know
both?
if I can share.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Little yum yum though. Yum yum.
I don't know if I can share.
Okay. Is it a yum or a yum yum?
I'm not sure.
Oh. Or is it an oh yum yum?
I don't know.
See, there's yum.
Yeah.
And
there's
like
yum yum.
You got your money back plus a little
You've
bit.
been doing this yum yum thing
there's
lately.
Yum yum, which is like, oh, you 10x or better.
Yeah.
And then there's, oh my yum yum. That's when you got the 100x, okay?
All right. Well, it wasn't that.
It wasn't oh my yum yum.
Yes, it was
so
not
it's either
that.
yum or yum yum. I got you.
it's
All
one of
right.
those.
You gave us a good ability to narrow it down. All right. We'll see you all next time on Angel, the podcast. Bye-bye.